So I've been asked once or twice what it's like to live on a Navy ship. And honestly, the closest comparison I can think of to make is it's kind of like prison. Now, before my chain of command starts drafting my counseling shit, just hear me out. Okay. Today I want to talk to y'all about something that came up at work the other day, and that's ship life and how what it's like to live on a ship. So is living on a ship basically prison? Spoiler alert, no, it's worse than prison. Just kidding. But in some ways, it is. I was on an amphibious assault ship, or an LHD, which is like a carrier but smaller. It's for helicopters and vertical landing slash short takeoff jets and LCACs, which is a big hovercraft thing. Anyway, when I first got to the ship, I felt like I was really motivated. I was ready to get qualified. I had a positive attitude, and that ship just sucked all that out of me. I never went to mass or anything like that, but I just had a rough time because it was way more time away from my family than I had anticipated. I was tracking deployment, but I had no idea about underway schedules or workups, 24-hour duty once a week, etc. So, could I have had a better attitude about it? Absolutely, I could. But you live and learn. So, let's talk about how living on a ship is similar to prison. So, let's start with the obvious one. When a ship goes out to sea, you can't leave. You can't take a flight off the ship to go see your family. You can't take leave and go on a trip somewhere else. You're stuck in every sense of the word. You are on that big floating steel gray turd with a few thousand other people for months. And if you're junior enlisted, like E4 and below, and you're single slash not married, your permanent place of residence is a rack on that ship. You're not authorized a barracks room. You're not authorized to go rent an apartment on your own dime. So even when you're in port, you're kind of stuck. And actually, the Navy is now getting junior enlisted off of Navy ships as their place to live. They're going to get them barracks rooms now, which is awesome. Thanks, Pete. The next reason why ship life is like prison is lack of privacy and room for your stuff. So your bed is called a rack, and it's like a coffin with a curtain. They actually call them coffin racks. I'm not making that up. They're stacked 3 high, and on my ship, they were stacked 4 high in the Marines berthings. You have space under your rack to store your stuff, and then you have a foot locker, which is about the size of a large backpack. And in prison, you'd have like one cellmate or maybe two or three. I don't know. I've never been to prison. Yeah, in my berthing, there was over 200 racks, and I lived in engineering berthing. So, yeah, about as dirty and as gross as you can imagine. Probably worse than you can imagine. Everything is shared, too, right? So, showers, bathrooms, the laundry machines. Also, the toilets back up all the time. The water doesn't always work. You get the idea. That curtain on your rack is your only sort of privacy. If you're ever talking to a sailor, just ask them how many times that curtain got ripped back by someone looking for their next watch relief or some other stupid reason. Ship life is also just like prison in that your time is not yours and your days are extremely structured, right? You're going to be working 6 days a week, probably 12 to 14-hour shifts, maybe a half day on Sunday if you're lucky. That's how it was for me anyway. Even when you're in port, you're going to stand 24-hour duty, like I talked about, at least once a week, probably more often if you're on a smaller ship. I spent Christmas away from home on deployment for the first time I was ever away from my family on Christmas. I remember all the guys in my shop saying, if I can't be at home with my family, there's no other group of people I'd rather spend Christmas with. I remember thinking, what a load of bullcrap. I could think of 10 groups of people off the top of my head that I would rather spend Christmas with. So remember, I said I had a bad attitude about being on the ship. Yeah, I've learned, I've grown. Get off my back. Anyway, the last thing that makes ship life like prison is the food. All sailors get BAS, or basic allowance for sustenance. It's money for food that you get in your check. It's about 400 something dollars a month. Whenever you're stationed on a ship, though, the Navy takes that money and it funds the food they buy for the galley. So just like prison, you're waiting in line with a plastic tray and you get your food and you eat in the mess decks. This is the main reason, in my opinion, that ship life is worse than prison, because I am certain that the vast majority of prisoners in this country eat better than sailors on Navy ships. That's a fact. In my opinion, they should run galleys on ships like a restaurant where you just order food and pay for it when you want to eat it. You don't pay for it if you don't want to eat it, kind of like the wardroom. When you start listing these things out, ship life starts sounding just like prison. But here's where the comparison falls apart a little bit. So obviously in prison, you're there because you did something wrong, right? On a Navy ship, you're there because you volunteered. So I would often think on the ship to myself, I freaking did this to myself. I volunteered for this crap. What the frick is wrong with me? On a Navy ship, you're there because you volunteered. And more importantly, because you are part of a mission. One thing people don't understand about ship life is the friendships you'll make. It's actually called trauma bonding, but I digress. When you live, work, eat, and deploy with the same group of people for months, they can become very close. You go through stressful situations together, you laugh at stupid stuff together, you make memories that you'll talk about for the rest of your life. Even me, that had kind of a bad attitude, I made a couple friends that I will keep in contact with for the rest of my life, for sure. Although I did get told by my chief in an eval brief that I am an acquired taste. I know, right? My wife says I should stop telling people that. But anyway, being on a Navy ship also gives you opportunities that not many people get. The main thing you get to do is travel the world. Now, my deployment was during COVID, so I did get to see the world, but that's all we really got to do was see it. We didn't get to go out and see any of the cool countries that we sailed by. I just watched the ocean change color and waved at it as we sailed on by and sailed around the world. I understand that that is not a typical ship experience. So if you are thinking about joining the Navy, don't let that sway you away from doing so. If you join the Navy right now and you go on a deployment on a ship next year or something, you will get to see the world and go out and explore some really cool countries. Living this ship life, sometimes it feels like prison. But the difference is this: you'll be surrounded by some of the toughest, funniest, most dedicated sailors in the world. And together you're defending your country. And that's what truly makes it all worth it. Seriously though, being on a ship is not that bad. One more sea story before I end the video. When I hadn't been on my ship very long, I was on Facebook in a Master at Arms group, and there's this girl that I knew from A school. She posted asking about 4 different ships that she'd seen on my Navy assignment, and asking for information on them. I happened to be the first to comment. I said, and I quote, I don't know anything about those ships specifically, but I wouldn't wish being stationed on a Navy ship on my worst enemy. Right? I told you I had a bad attitude. Well, my chief and senior chief were in that group and they saw my comment. So they both told me that I need to come talk to them when I got to work on the ship the next day. I wasn't like in trouble. They just wanted to find out where my head was at. So I think that girl ended up choosing non-ship orders, which at the time I was pretty happy about. I'm still kind of happy about it, to be honest. But my chain of command was not happy with me. So overall, I would say being on a ship is not for everybody. It certainly wasn't super enjoyable for me, but it has its pros and cons, just like anything else. You will get to see the world. You will make lifelong friendships. And if you get after it, it'll be good for your career. In another video, I'll tell you guys about shellback ceremonies. So yeah, ship life might feel like a little like prison sometimes, but it's also where a lot of sailors grow up. They figure things out and make friendships that will last a lifetime. If you've lived the ship life, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm MA2 Brown. This is Guardian of the Fleet. See you in the next one.